What is relatively unknown band or artist that more people should listen to? There's an album that I think is called Love Supreme by a band artist that I think is also called Love Supreme. I can't find any info about these people online nor any other work than this one album from them. But I'm obsessed with it and I don't even know what genre to call it. TBH, there is a song on it called Ain't No Remedy and it sounds almost from the 1930s at times but with a smooth bass wide jazz style voice and a bit electronic. It's just been playing repeat in my head and I'm mainly mentioning it here because I want to know if anyone knows anything similar or more from them. This past year, I've been listening to a lot of a guy by the name of Billy Rafool. I had the pleasure of catching one of his shows a month or so ago. It was a Monday evening gig in a bar with maybe 100 people, but a ton of fun. He only has 11K followers on Pandora, but I really think he deserves so much more than that. His brother Peter opened the show, he's well worth a listen as well. Oingo Boingo! And just wait! Before you jump my butt about it, I'll admit they're super well known in SoCal but outside the area. Not really. Even though Elfman has become a controversial putting it nicely figure recently and has a hell of a lot more popularity now due to his film scoring career, not many know Boingo's music aside from Dead Man's Party and or Weird Science and that, friends, is a fucking tragedy. Edit typos BCM hands not made for these tiny GD keys. Years ago I was reading an article I think but maybe I was listening to a podcast because I can't find the source about suicide hotline operators. One throwaway line that struck me was paraphrased, "When all else fails, I tell them the caller to put on some emancipator." I was like, who the hell is that? It led me down a path of ambient music and I've been a big fan of them ever since. I was trying to explain to my friend what the new Game of Thrones spin-off sequel or whatever it is called. I couldn't think of the exact name so I just said it's called Knights of Something. So he then googled Knights of Something as a joke. Which he then told me it's a band. He searched the band on Spotify and hooked up to the Bluetooth speaker and they actually have some decent bangers. Would recommend. Chemist. One of the best description of the band is Iron Maiden that is dragged through sludge and mud in a good way. They're a doom heavy metal band, basically a mix of doom metal and traditional heavy metal. Great drums, incredible guitars and bass, outstandingly beautiful vocals. Their latest album Deceiver 2021 is probably their best album yet and I can't recommend it hard enough. Biting Elbows. I know a lot of Russian stuff probably isn't terribly popular ATM given certain events but these guys have been amazing for close to 15 years now. Their song Control is fantastic, if a pain in the arse to Google if you're trying to find info on a Remedy game or a Joy Division biopic instead. Plus their vocalist is a guy who directed Nobody and Hardcore Henry Metric. Canadian band out of Toronto. Been going for 20 years, 8 studio albums. Most everyone has heard something by them, but just don't know it. The song that Brie Larson sings in Scott Pilgrim? That's Metric. They've had songs featured in multiple episodes of The Vampire Diaries, and Grey's Anatomy of all things. No one seems to have heard of them, and it's sad. Richard Smith. British fellow who often plays with Tommy Emmanuel but is a dazzling fingerstyle guitarist. Saw him close up once and his technique is astonishing. He is on YouTube playing The Entertainer and Scott Joplin stuff, Stars and Stripes Forever, pop songs. The guy can literally play anything. My favorite is Pineapple Rag but there is plenty to choose from. Austin Eatman, he's a local flair. Think folksy almost Jacob Dylan sound. Below are 3 of my favorites that he does. The Sparkle of Lost Style. Jaggy Wartime Song. New Closing Time. Bug Hunter will appeal to some for his quirky sense of humor and his catchy tunes. Manchester Orchestra are good, and some of their music videos are really creative. Simple Math is a good place to start with Manchester Orchestra, and Dear McCracken is classic Bug Hunter, but it's early age so he's not as polished. Maybe Pinecones would be better. Lawrence. They had a super successful 2023 opening for both AJR and Jonas Brothers, as well as a handful of headliner shows on off days of the tour. Clyde Lawrence is an awesome songwriter who is leading the fight against Live Nation and Ticketmaster. Gracie Lawrence has the voice of an angel and this contagious energy that will brighten your day. Shrezzers. The band has some of the catchiest tunes in metal and aren't even too rough to listen to. The main draw is their absolutely genius use of saxophone in every song they make, which fits so perfectly in metal. I'd also recommend Windwalkers for similar reasons, minus the sax. Both had the best and catchiest albums to come out in 2023, though they're not unknown. I know quite a few music nerds who have never heard of Teenage Fan Club and it's a damn shame. They're like if Big Star was Scottish in the 90s and loved Sonic Youth. Liam Gallagher once said they're the great rock band in the world, second only to Oasis, and that's a big deal. It was all Liam's fault. BTW. VNV Nation. Hard to pin down a genre because he shifts album by album. Industrial? Prog industrial? Symphonic something? My favorite album is Transnational, though others come close seconds. Poets of the Fall. Absolute amazing work for the most part, and some awesome music videos, too. Best album to start with to me is Ultraviolet. Wax Taylor. Will Smith Aladdin ripped him off and never paid him or credited him after stealing his music for a huge movie promo. He made a brief comment about it on his own page but didn't have it in him to go after them for copyright infringement. Obviously he's that good if Disney is stealing his shit. All the responses should just be people linking the Bandcamp to their favorite local band, the much lesser known ones for those in cities with huge, historic music scenes. Here is one of my favorite local metal bands, Distances. Cryptograph is a very recent band that makes late 60s style heavy metal. It's so good. My favorite song of theirs is Cosmic Suicide, and it kind of reminds me of early Rush except for the vocals. Chad Valley. He makes dreamy pop music that ranges from energetic to almost a cappella. Here he is singing Fall For You live in studio. I think it really shows off his voice when it gets going. Outside of Canada, the Tragically Hip. For years I've found that anytime a foreigner hears them for the first time they're blown away. As well they should be. The Hip are amazing. I never understood why they didn't get big anywhere else. Lana Del Rey deserves more attention since she's actually an extremely talented poet-writer. Her mainstream songs are mainstream good, but she has so many songs that are just so elegant and beautiful. She's a very interesting person. Fat, Lake, Rebreather, Daggers, Papers, Weed Eater, Factual Brains, Pillars, Friendship Commanders, Mr. Clip the Pink Cigarettes, Yites, X200B. I work in a small music venue, and so many bands get overlooked for large shows. Athlete. They're a band and they made this song called Wires. It was a song that used to be played at me when I was like 3 and 4 years old. That song was the song that was always played when I was the happiest I ever was in my life. Long. Two-piece band, just a cello and drums, and the cellist is also the vocalist. Apes of the State. Folk punk, raw, cringe in a good way. Mala Bloom. Indie singer-songwriter. I like both their performance style and their lyrics. Not sure how unknown they are, but since I've never really heard them on the radio, streaming not included, I assume they have a smaller, less popular audience, but I love and constantly listen to. Band of Horses. Lord Huron. The Score or Two Steps from Hell. Both make amazing music, and I've even heard some of their songs used in commercials trailers before, but I've only ever met one person who listened to either before I recommended them. Splendor. They came out early 2000 and had 2 amazing albums. I wish these guys would do some reunion tour or something. I think God Can Explain was one of their biggest hits, but every song they made was a masterpiece. Lawrence. They have been opening for the Jonas Brothers and are the first artists signed by John Bellion to his label. The brother Clyde has written a lot of great music and the sister Gracie has a very unique voice. James Blake has been popular recently for working with Metro for the whole Spider-Verse 2 soundtrack. But I found him when I was a freshman in HS, and his music changed how I thought, especially his first 3 albums. Graveyard. Swedish throwback blues metal. It's like witchcraft. Led Zeppelin and Priestess made a dark and twisted little love child. Black Heart. Hauntingly beautiful music. Propagandhi. Thrash punk group from Winnipeg that have been playing for 30 years now. Every album is a banger full of bangers, and the only thing better than their riffs are their lyrics. I just discovered Atikin and never realized I would ever enjoy Siberian folk music so much. This song is mesmerizing. Chanometoskin. S-Type. Part of the EDM trap scene, which, if it's not your thing, you probably won't get into it. But if you're into EDM trap, his sounds are really rich and worth your time. I fears Werby, seriously an amazing songwriter that never really gained notoriety. I rank them highly in my list of lyricists, and I really nerd out for poetry and music. Del Shannon. He worked from the 1960s to his self-ending in 1990. His last album, Rock On, is a favorite of mine. The upbeat music with depressing lyrics works for me. Flotsam and Jetsam. Thrash band from Oz. Been around a long time. Great listen, if you're into that genre. Wish they toured more. Love to see them in the plains. Now's the perfect time to get on the Viagra Boys punk post-punk train. Also in a totally different genre, For indie rock electronic fans, Big Black Delta. I love this sub and this question op. I'm a 61-yo grandmother, but I love all the genres of music. Down the rabbit hole I go to discover new tunes. Dan Mangan. Canadian singer-songwriter. Beautiful voice, amazing lyrics. Every one of his albums sounds like a cozy armchair in front of a fireplace. The Flashbulb. Ben Jordan. Stunt rock. The Bleachers. The best parts of 80s pop and Springsteen brought back as modern alternative rock and fronted by a musical multi-Grammy genius. The Beatles. I'm not even kidding, there's a generation for who the Beatles are relatively unknown. And I want those people to discover them. I don't frequent music circles, so I'd how unknown this guy is, but I only recently discovered NFX and now I want to share him with everyone. Infected Mushroom. An Israeli trance group with 2 members. Just listen this masterpiece. Espen and the Witch. They're super obscure 40k monthly listener on Spotify, but they're so talented. They deserve to be way more popular. Kasky. Newer stuff is super inspiring. The people he worked with are genuinely awesome, met him a few times, he's just good to his fans. Sybil Bayer, she's a German English language folk singer. She only had one compilation album released in 2006 and it's truly beautiful. There's a lot of Canadian bands on this list. They should all have made it big in the States. My favorite is Sloan and the Hip, homegrown out of California. Kings of Pop has some of the best pop-punk riffs and guitar tone. They also have a Fire Sky album. You know who was the first relatively unknown band or artist that more people should listen to? Our Lord and Savior, Jesus.